Welcome to Idea Citizen. Today I'm speaking with Jamie Purvis and Jacklyn Purvis about the power of mindset. Thank you guys for joining me. I personally love this concept of like a father-daughter duo. I think that there's a degree of like clarity and honesty that comes with family partnerships, but then also speaking as a daughter myself, we are very critical and honest of our parents. We are generally tend to be the ones that don't hold back. So you guys working on Be Do Have movement together, ultimately my understanding is everything that you guys are doing really kind of is cemented around kind of building and mindset and building this life for yourselves. Are you guys doing that like right now? I mean, I think is Be Do Have movement really like that, that the life goal for yourselves?
I've been in a season this year, so for me, more than anything, I'm leaning back on it. And our brand really started from that, from doing that for ourselves initially. So we didn't start working together initially just because we're like, okay, we have this business idea. Like it really started, Jamie was actually coaching me in a program and I was at a totally different career at that point. And it was that personal growth and the personal development. And it was my first really approach to understanding mindset as a whole. Who do you want to be? Like, what does that life look like? How can you change your thinking to get to that next level? We got into this together because we were doing it sort of separately for our own lives on our own and then ended up partnering and snowballing into what it is today. But it's 100% something that we like fundamentally live on and come back to.
I love it. The student became the teacher type of situation here.
Literally. Yeah, exactly.
And
I
Jamie,
actually
so
feel that too.
right? I mean,
It's
but so
interesting.
Jamie, you've
Yeah.
been doing this for a long time. So like, can you take me through, your background and because it sounds like you've started a few different businesses and you've pivoted and you're here today. I think there I think there's something great from looking to people that have walked the walk and have done it. That personally speaks to me because I think there's something it's like, all right, there's a theoretical version of something and then there's the reality of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And on your point, I think we're all trying to figure it out, right? I think we're just trying to live our life, trying to figure out what the hell we want, what makes us happy. And when I look back and what got me here was I've always been blessed to follow my heart. I've never had a job. Got into real estate sales. I was selling vacuum cleaners, tried to sell a vacuum cleaner to the president of the real estate board at that time. And he said, "What the hell are you doing?" Planted the seed, right? Planted the seed in my mind. And in hindsight, there's been those moments in time where the right person shows up. And if you're open to hear what they're saying and the message, maybe it resonates then, maybe it doesn't. And he was the first person that planted the seed. And I got into real estate at a very young age and did that for 23 and a half years and loved it until I didn't. And I always say I lost the loving feeling. And when I did, I made the decision to pivot and I transitioned into management leadership. We opened up several different real estate companies in Toronto, and I recreated myself. And that's initially where this Be Do Have process started. Didn't know it at the time, but in hindsight, looking at it, okay, I created a new identity. I created that next level of life, and it started because I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy.
Who was that
And I
person
couldn't see
before and
myself
who
keep
who are
doing
you
it.
today?
Yeah, well, I think I have a lot more patience, although just before this call, Jacqueline and I were in dialogue. So the dynamic of, yes, it's the father daughter, and sometimes,
Best of
you
both
get on each
worlds.
other and, it's just what it is, right? And, you walk away. And back then I was very aggressive, very assertive, very competitive. If I was in sales, I'm going to be the best at it. Became very successful at it and loved it. I didn't listen very well. I heard what I needed to hear and I would move on. So probably wasn't very good at long-term relationships. Now relationships, get my business and move on. I think the awareness for me was when I came home one day and my wife at that time, and still my wife today, thank God, wasn't happy and was getting ready to leave with our two daughters. And she's like, "I'm done." And I was that guy that was oblivious, had no idea. And it's like, "I'm doing this for us." And she goes, "There's no us. Like, this isn't working for me." And that was that first moment in time. So who was I before that to being able to then be open-minded and realize how I have to make some changes?
The reality of I think like what the expectation also of being a man, being a father, I don't know how you want to partner, but like those things have changed over time. Today, I'm thrilled to see men getting in touch with at least like, my family and like what does that look like? And credit to you for realizing that like, hey, this is not what I want and I want to change it and then changing it actually.
Yeah, it's the values, right? I think getting connected to and understanding your values and the value of family was very important to me, even though my actions maybe didn't reflect that at that moment or for those years. But when it became important, then I recreated myself. And that's the whole concept of the B2Have movement. If you're not happy with what you have, and it could be really good. So sometimes it's not about being bad, but you just want something more, something better. And when you do, you have to change your thinking. You have to change your programming, and that takes reflection. And that's what led me to the next step, running companies. And that's what led me out of that business when I made the decision. I loved coaching, but running a company of 230 people and everything that was involved wasn't fulfilling. So I had to go. And it was selfish for me to follow my heart and follow my dream. And that led to the Be-Do-Have movement and the concept. And this evolution with Jacklyn wasn't planned. It was interesting. It just didn't even see it.
Is it selfish for you to like live a life, on your own accord, or is it just honest? Because like, who do we owe anything to really at the end of the day? I mean, like, I think, ourselves and our
That
families and everything, but it's like, how is that selfish? And what, I guess I'm like, why
it
do you
isn't.
think that?
And that's the thing.
Oh, there you go.
But it's programming, right?
Yeah.
It's programming. Like you're
Yeah.
taught culture, family, school, church, whatever. I was taught that, it's put everyone first, like look after everyone else. And in lieu of that, I wasn't looking after me. So it is deep rooted. I really do believe that, because even when I'm talking to people and say, look, you got to be selfish for you. Like you just feel there's resistance there, right? And yes, we need to be, because if you're not looking after yourself, it's going to fall, it's going to come crumbling down at some point, right? So yeah, I don't believe it is a bad thing. I think it's a requirement, and it is a foundation that we should be aware of that.
Jacqueline, how did you get involved and were you like resistant to it initially?
When the initial conversation happened, it was yes, something I wanted to do, but I got into it at a completely different point from Jamie. I was in an advertising agency, and I had moved companies. I wasn't loving it's a very chaotic workplace. Like there's just chaotic hours. The money's like mediocre at best at the beginning. It's just like meh. And I started getting really anxious. And this new job, aside from like the work demands, it also just had zero culture. So it kind of wiped out like any of the joy from going to work. And I had taken this program that Jamie was coaching at the time, like, and it was very much about like, who do you want to become? What does your life want to look like? Like, what gives you joy? How do you want to take control of what you're stepping into, basically? And a lot about habits and just shifting your thinking. And it was stuff I had never thought about before. I couldn't go back to thinking the way I was previously. So once this anxiety started happening, and it was just getting to a point, I was like, I would drive to work and be sitting in the parking lot having a panic attack before going into this office. And it was like, I'm not getting paid enough for this. Like, we're not saving lives here. This doesn't make sense to proceed with. But it really was like, when I look at it foundationally, I went through this program and shifted my thinking so much that I knew, like, you don't have to live like this. Like, we're meant to be happy. We're meant to follow what brings us joy. And if we're doing it 9 to 6 every day, it better bring us a little bit of happiness, or what's the point? So it was really that moment for me. And I'm like a very controlled person. So I didn't have a plan, and I had went into this office and I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm leaving. It was like a very like Sex in the City like episode moment. It really wasn't my personality to like not have stuff planned, and just I couldn't do it anymore. So I left without a next step at that point, and I just knew like I'll figure it out because like this ain't it. And I started working with Jamie at that point on a more business level, like assisting with business cards and a website development. And I was doing something else on the side that completely replaced my income. So it's also interesting how things work out like that. And yeah, we just got to a point, and we were we were in the car together, and I had thought about it for some time, and I was just like, listen, like, I think we can build this to something bigger. I think we can help more people with this and different programs and different development. And that's really where the idea started.
I love it.
I did do some NLP background training within that, and it was really fascinating because you do have this lived in perspective when you do it from like I learned through this initially and then did training and then went from there.
I recently heard someone say NLP, and I forgot what that stands for. Can you define it?
Neuro linguistic programming.
Which means,
The study essentially of communication and how to change your thought patterns to get to where you want to go. So there's a lot more programs, systems, and techniques you can use. I don't do the like quote unquote technical NLP. We've really integrated it into the forms that we teach with our clients.
and I know that you guys both are focusing kind of on different kind of groups. I think Jacqueline, you're focusing on entrepreneurs, and Jamie, I think you focus like people that are in real estate. Are there any commonalities that you're noticing with people that come to a place of wanting coaching or are looking for help? Are there common threads or things that like even have those commonalities changed in time, and are they consistent?
I would say one that I really see is people come in, because most people are coming in for that business outcome. They're coming in to make more money and they realize, we always hear this when they're coming out, is the commonality of just like how much this changed my life. Like, we're not giving them workout programs, but so many of them have come through and been like, I've lost so much weight. Like, whatever their personal goals were in addition to their business, how much we do holistically focus on mindset and everything we do. So it is that life and business combination and everything. But they always see such a change in their life, even though they're coming through just for that monetary value change or that specific objective. That would be something I see almost through and through, no matter the program.
And in fact, to your point, like the health benefits, if anything, like that delivers on multiples. It's like you improve one part of your life and the implications of it that it would have on other parts of your life is amazing. I think part of Idea Citizen for me is like I'm working on building my dream life. Let's see what happens from it. Like, and I don't know, some of the future is unclear, but I'm going to take a chance.
When you bet on yourself, you usually win, right? And I think having that faith and belief maybe isn't always there, always present, but at the end of the day, it's the biggest investment you can make is in your personal growth and development. And a lot of times people come to us for business. And I remember a saying, our business grows to the extent we do. So we can focus on the business, the tools, the systems, but until we grow and think different and really learn how to reprogram what we even believe to be true and our limiting beliefs and our blocks, and we expose all that. When we do that, it expands into many areas of our world, of our life, right? And personal is a massive byproduct of all that. And it's so they come for business, but then we work on that personal growth and development to think different. And then your business grows because now you're thinking different. So it's the byproduct, but the irony of the situation.
And it is that think different, do things differently, create new habits that are based on the goals you want to have. So that's of course why you're going to see that change too from a personal development standpoint, or your health areas, whatever area is important to each individual person, because they are seeing that like habitual change based on the areas that matter to them.
I realize this isn't going to speak to everybody that say you work with or even everybody that's listening, but is like one thing that people can do that you find that has been very beneficial? Is there something that you can kind of pinpoint?
For me, and I was immediately going to say this, it's you need to fill your cup first. So every client that's going to be a little bit different to what that looks like. I will share my personal is a routine, like a morning routine at least. I need to set up something, and that just changes productivity, efficiency, mindset, like how I'm able to show up as a human being. But for any of our clients, it's really, or any of our members or anyone listening, it's when do you feel at your best? Like if that's a night thing for you, just doing something throughout your day for yourself that's filling your cup up first. I would say across the board, that's going to make the biggest shift.
And I would add to that, we start every call with tell me something good. So that's right in alignment to what Jacklyn just said. So look for the good in your life, in yourself and others, and then you'll see it and then it expands. And then I think sometimes we get stuck in overwhelm and all the stuff that's happening to us. And we like to go through an exercise called the mindset reset. Simply, it works this way. You write down everything that's bothering you. Just put a timer on your phone for 10 minutes. First 5 minutes, write down everything that's bothering you, everything you're not happy with. Just write it out. Brain dump. We say just brain dump it. Just write it on a sheet of paper. Now we want to look at that sheet of paper and then we want to reset it. So for everything you've written down that's negative, that you're not happy with, that you just are tired of, what is the polar opposite to that? and then write that down on a separate sheet of paper. And then ultimately, you're going to replace every one of those negative thoughts and beliefs with something that's more inspiring and more positive for yourself. And now that becomes your reality. That becomes your next step, your new identity, your future self. And then you take that first sheet of paper that you wrote down all that stuff and literally rip it up or burn it. Like it's
ceremoniously
symbolic.
but
Honestly, Jackie, like burn that, let it go.
yeah.
And when you realize when it's gone, like what's now holding me, but now you've got this new reality for you. So that mindset reset, I think it doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, anyone, that is a process that you can take and implement in a matter of 10 minutes.
What keeps coming to mind for me is just kind of also the practice of meditation. I feel like there's a component here where it's also it's writing this down, but it's the practice of it, because it's not like one day you're like, okay, I'm going to write everything down and it's done that day. It's like no, it's continuously benchmarking and coming back to like this practice of, all right, here's where I am, here's where I want to be. And it's not those lists will change, those lists, depending on what's happening, will vary. When people come to chat with you guys or to get coaching, is generally the intent is like, I want to get to more money, but then it's like these are all the things that play into it? Or is it I guess, is it always a money focus for like building your life? Or is it like money as a, I don't know, money as a vehicle for like doing what you love, money for, having a lifestyle that you love for your family?
And we say money across the board, but it's really, what do you want with the money? Like, what's important? And that's individual to everyone. Like, do you want more time in your life? Is freedom important to you? Is having more space with your family important to you? Is it vacations? Like, whatever it is that you want to do with that, but really, what does you want your life to look like at the deeper root of it? Like, people resonate with money, I think, because a lot of our clients are salespeople and are real estate agents. So they do have those like specific, articulate visions. But we've had so many people come through where it's like, I'm not driven by that at all. Like, my value system, money isn't even in the top 10. So I want to have more time, or I want to have more space. I want to be able to support my family in this way. And that's their connector to whatever it is that they're setting. So I would say 100% across the board, it's always a deeper value system that someone's connecting to. What would you say, Jamie?
Yeah, I think money might be a challenge for somebody where, they want more, that competitive nature, for example, in real estate specifically, or in business, like I just want to get to that next level. Or I'm seeing a lot more now where people are just not happy. And I think COVID exposed so many great opportunities. It caused people to slow down and reflect. And, you had time, right? You had time for yourself. And I think we've seen this shift back. If you've noticed that too, Jackie, it's just like there was this period of time where it just felt really good. And now everyone just feels like it shifted back and they're caught up on that treadmill again.
It feels a little bit like us versus them.
Unhappy.
I feel like that's also part of it too, where it's like there's this like push and pull, and it's like it's like I don't know, people get pissed. Like people are like, so there's so much of this clickbait also, I think, that happens in the media too. Where my head also goes with this is like, I also wonder, so there's the pre-COVID, post-COVID, and I also wonder, like, from a value or priority standpoint, if you guys notice anything generationally, like if there's any differences.
I think there is. I think there's a massive awareness around younger people that my generation didn't have. Like, we were very programmed. There's a process, high school, university, go to work, right? And that's it. And I think we extended it from our parents potentially, where, they had the same job forever. My generation, maybe we moved around a little bit. But I think the awareness is what I've noticed, and that consciousness is very different for under 35, maybe even under 40, but definitely in the 30s and 20s. Like, people have their stuff together. Like, they know what they want in life. They have more alignment to what's a priority, and it's not just work, right? I want to live. I want to be able to travel. And we noticed this when we started to travel a few years ago and escaping the snow in the winter, and this whole digital nomad community. Like, I didn't even know what the hell that was. Then you get away and you realize, like, people are just traveling the world, working, and it's like, and they're happy and beautiful sun tans. It's just amazing, right? And you wonder, okay, so there's a disconnect. And I think I was aware of it, and that's why I've been blessed where my wife's always supported me in what I wanted to do. And, you get that support behind you. It allows you to step forward. And I've been changing myself over the years. So that's where I think when somebody's reaching out, they want change. And it might be business, it might be life, it might be lifestyle. I want more time. They want something different. They want to create a change. And that's the first step. And that's the awareness that I think we're seeing a lot of right now.
I feel like there's a lot of leadership development I'm kind of getting from this conversation because, I mean, for Jacklyn, with you, with like working with entrepreneurs, where my head goes from entrepreneurship, it also goes like you don't build businesses by yourself. Like, I mean, call it a vendor, call it, subordinate, like whatever, we call it peers, whatever you want to call it. But like, you don't do these things in an echo chamber. And I think that there is a bit of a disconnect in terms of, I think, when you're wanting, say, if you want to get your company to certain financial goals and you also are working on team, it's like part of it is driving the organization, but then I think also part of it is learning how to actually build the team. Yeah, like know yourself, but it's like making people like you enough that they like want to sign on for like whatever you're actually working on. Do you guys see anything with like, people that specific? I feel like I'm going to like entrepreneurship space because it feels like more team like. And partly I don't know if that also applies to real estate, but like people that have these financial goals, changing their lives, changing like who they are, like how does that like extend to kind of mindset and like leadership? I feel like leadership is a hot topic and I find it like it's posted regularly to the Idea Citizen group. So that's kind of where this question is coming from.
So it's A, how do you lead yourself so that B, you can lead other people? And a huge component of that is understanding relationships and understanding how to work with other people. I don't know if you ever heard of the DISC personalities.
I actually think I think I took something on your website because I was
Did
scrolling around.
you?
I was like,
Yay.
yeah, I need to go look at yeah, I was curious myself.
It's fantastic, A, to know yours, just what your strengths are, but also how to work with people that aren't your personality types and how to lead through understanding other people and helping other people get to their goals, lead within, and then learn how to lead others because it's 100% a skill.
I was just going to say on that concept of leadership, it's very intuitive of you to pick that up because what is leadership? I remember when I was training realtors, asking them, okay, are you a leader? And like 20% of the room put up their hand and the rest wouldn't. So I believe everyone's a leader. Like Jacklyn said, we're leading our life. We're trying to figure it out. That takes leadership. So the first thing we want to do is see ourselves as that leader. So for you to acknowledge that and see that on a personal level is a great first step. Like I'm a leader, I'm leading my life. So where am I going? Right? Where's the clarity? And that all leads into this whole concept of what's important to you. What do you want? You learn how to become a better communicator. You ask me old Jamie versus now. Well, I probably didn't listen as much as I do now. Now I talk less and my clients talk more. I've learned to ask better questions, ask thought-provoking questions. People be heard. And if they're missing clarity, like the best thing I feel I could help somebody with is helping them think different, helping them, influence their thinking so that they can start to think for themselves and get out of I always say the programming, right? Like go online today and I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news. You hear about it, but I don't need to know. It's going to come to me. So I have to block it because it's such a distraction. And
It's a lot.
Everyone has an agenda.
Yeah.
Like it's gotten to the point where I feel it intuitively, energetically, and I just have to block it and protect myself from that. And as a result of that, I'm in a better place and then I can stay focused. But leadership is I believe it's foundational and it's influence. So influencing ourselves first.
I got to tell you guys, I feel like just based on like this little, just this, your take on leadership for a period of time, I've kind of, and this is kind of new because I will say old Jackie versus new Jackie, there's definitely differences as I've, been getting older, but I sometimes thought of leadership as like a dirty word a little bit. And like what I mean in that is that sometimes I'm like, it feels, and maybe it shouldn't, but it feels sometimes very exhaustively egocentric. And I don't know why I feel that way. I guess sometimes I'm like just tired of it. And maybe because I see so much messaging towards like leadership, leadership, leadership. But I like your version of leadership. And I think I want to adopt this version of it for myself.
I hear you though, because I think about like when I was in the agency space, I definitely had some like bosses at some points that were very like, it has to go like this. You have to work here. You can't go in a like just told you what to do. But I never actually internalized those people to be leaders in my mind. I was like, yes, you're my technical boss, from like a hierarchy standpoint. I guess qualities to those people. I guess I've never seen someone that like wasn't, I don't want to say a good person, but you know what I mean? When some people are in those leadership roles and they aren't necessarily there for the best reasons. I just never connected that to be like, that's a leader. I'm like,
Yeah.
ah, they're a boss.
But to your point, you make the distinctions like leader versus boss. Do you ever find that like there's people that come to you guys too that like kind of are trying to kind of work up the courage, like let's say introvert to extrovert? Because I feel like leadership, or at least like building out like a business or in scaling, and I mean in real estate, like there's definitely an extroversion component. Are there's things that people can do that like if you're naturally introverted, or if you don't feel comfortable with kind of being like this outwardly person in your life, like are there things that people can do to kind of build themselves up to a different place or a confidence that they need to kind of you know see some things happen in their life?
I think we'll both have very different points on this one. I think it's very much about figuring out how to do what you want to do in your way. It's like based on your strengths and your individual business, what works best for you and the people you're serving. And I think when it comes to leadership, that's the same thing. It's how do you lead in your own way. And we were at a convention recently, and Jim Quick, Jamie, that's his name, was on stage. And on stage, he's like this big personality. He's all about like brain optimization. And we were talking to some other speakers afterwards, and they were like, behind the scenes, he's completely introverted. He doesn't talk to anybody. Like, that's just his personality. But I think it's such a great reminder that you can still be a leader if you're not a huge extrovert, that wants to talk to all these people and be that if that's not you. I think it's just you have to learn to be comfortable being authentically yourself
Right.
and lead in that way. But I'm curious, Jamie, what you have to say on that one.
Yeah, I think there's various forms of leadership and who we are attracted to as a person. We tend to see things in people that inspire us, empower us, and then maybe we will be aligned to them and pulled towards them. But I'm for myself, for example, like I'm a leader based on mentoring myself first. So I want to mentor others by modeling it. So I'm going to do things first, verify for me that it works, so that when I'm talking to somebody, that confidence comes through. So I think the form of leaders that we are attracted to often are a reflection of who we are individually. So that's why everyone's going to have a different leader that they're inspired by. I believe in servant leadership. For
Mhm.
me, that's inspiring because that's who I'm attracted to. I'm not attracted to this person that has to be at the front of the room. Often the real leader isn't at the front of the room, but it's the person that people follow, right? There's the person that when they speak, people listen, versus the person that's always speaking because they deem themselves the leader, maybe position, or others have said, yeah, you're the leader. But who are people listening to? Who are they following is often the true leader. And I think that goes back to how do you see yourself? Self identity and self image, right? And so we work on that and help you elevate that. You see yourself different. Well, this air of confidence shows up. This being changes, right? Your sense of who you are and your values and your standards all changes. And when that happens, then you ultimately will do things different than you've done in the past. And Jackie, you made the point earlier, like, don't we all wish we live in a world where instant gratification, right? You watch a video and you're done. It's finished. You wanted this new life.
Yeah.
But we have to reprogram ourselves in a way, right?
Yeah. And I think all this kind of ladders up into authenticity. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. It's like, to your point, Jacqueline, like if you live, if you don't need to do it, leadership or whatever you're doing the same way as somebody else, you need to do it the way that's right for you. And I'm curious, like in terms of your thoughts on like partnership, like your partner, your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. How do partnerships and picking the right partner kind of play into kind of building like, a life well lived?
I think so. My partner he's American, I'm Canadian. So those are just differences. But I would say, as much as we had differences, it seems, I think, sometimes externally or up front, a lot of it comes down to is similar values. So we do something called it's a values assessment. It's a values playbook exercise, and it truly helps people dig into like what's fundamentally important to them. And I think as long as those are similar, like a lot of the external things can be different if you're operating from the same foundation. So I would say it's looking for commonalities in those places about
Mhm.
whatever it is that's important to you.
For me, it's open-mindedness, willingness to change, willingness to communicate. My wife and I have been together for almost 40 years. And you know what? Has it always been bliss? No. Has it always been joy, happiness? We've gone through the gamut. And
Yeah.
I think the journey has been the relationship and the growth that comes with it. So, two people maybe aren't at the same place at that point in time. But to Jacqueline's point, if the values are there, they're authentic, we have a growth mindedness that's common there. We want the best for ourselves and each other, and family was important. So, I think when the foundation is there and pieces of it, and everyone's still willing to grow and fight for what you have, because at times that's what you do. You fight for what's important to you, right?
It really is that like fundamental willingness to grow together and willingness to communicate along the way. Because I think nothing's perfect. There's going to be roadblocks along, of course, two separate human beings. But I think it's that willingness that, we're going to communicate and we're going to continue to grow.
Are there opportunities for organizations to build like a culture of, I guess, internal leadership and authenticity? Like, how could something like that scale? Like, say you start as, you start your business or somebody like comes in, like, how do you kind of make that the norm or at least influence people to like, I don't know, not be yes people and actually like be their authentic version? And because where my head goes is that like if from an organizational level standpoint, if you're able to implement like an environment where people are authentic to themselves and their gifts and what they're able to bring to the environment and to those relationships, I anticipate everybody's going to win from that. Like, I anticipate the bottom line will grow. I anticipate, like, let's call it like a happiness quotient. I'm sure somebody wrote a book called that or something, but it's like I feel like all these other things would like line up. Can organizations do this? Is it possible? Can you do that only with 5 people, or does it like, can you even imagine that for 500?
I'll say from working in the agency, they very much hired and told you what to do, and you were put in this box. And I think that was so limiting because you weren't able to think creatively outside of that. So I think you weren't adding necessarily your true value as an employee because you were said, like, you have to do this. And if you want to do outside of that, no, that's not within the role. So I think what would have worked in that position, anyways, is to really leverage something like the disc can be a really simple integration from a leadership perspective. But when you're hiring on a team member, understanding based on a personality assessment, whatever it is you go to for that, what are their strengths? How can we leverage this from a growth perspective so that they're not just doing this task, but they're growing into a role and they're staying with the company in a long-term process?
Mhm.
What would you say, Jamie, from your like leadership from an office standpoint?
It goes to culture, I think, is the big piece. What I love about these conversations, Jackie, is whenever we have them, and even coaching and conversations, I always say we co-create
Mm.
because it leads to something.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and the authentic leadership, like my mind, I'm thinking as you are talking, like my mind is just racing, because to answer your next question, yes, you can do this in a group of 5, in a group of 100, in a country. Like if you have that right person that has the vision that people buy into. And I think it goes back to, the authentic leader will help others be authentic in their conversation. So imagine a safe place where the culture was every voice matters,
Mhm.
every opinion matters. Here's where we want to go. We want to hear from everybody because you don't know where the idea is coming from. You don't know where that one idea will spark the next idea. And then together we start to create something. That in itself becomes a culture that I think people are just attracted to. And when I was running the real estate company, it was really important for me to help others see their greatness and step into that culture of their success, whatever it was. So I would work with my people and I would ask them, figure out their goals, why they want it, what's important, and then I would define it in a word. And it was
Okay.
their word. I wanted their word. And then whenever I would pass them in the hall, I would use their word. And that word triggered that excitement within them. And the person that pops in my mind right now is the $1 million man. He had a goal of making $1 million a year. Wherever I saw him is like the $1 million man. And I would snap my fingers, bit of a pattern interrupt there. So I would get his attention. and then the $1 Million Man, and that triggered all the feelings inside of for him why that was important.
Yeah.
And that became that growth culture.
Yeah. That's like
And
that
that's why I think
singular focus.
culture
It's like, that's
culture
what you're
always
going
wins.
for. Yeah. What was your word, Jamie?
That's it. Mine was actually inspiration.
It's for, okay. And you were doing that.
Everything I did was inspiring others, but at the same time, it inspired me. And I had a goal to build our company to be #1 in Canada, and we did it 3 years in a row. So that was my internal drive. Selfishly, I wanted that for the reasons that I wanted it.
And this speaks to why
I just lived it.
Apologies for interrupting, but this speaks to why
No, go ahead.
why you value servant leadership, because to your point, like inspiring people to do their best, like removing roadblocks and everything. And I honestly am I don't know if I'm a student of servant leadership, but I do fully also buy into that kind of methodology and logic. And I I like it. I like where it's like flipping kind of the lens.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You said, okay, that's in alignment to you. So when we find people in our path that say things that are in alignment to us, we become magnets for each other, right?
Yeah.
And the opportunity is, if somebody's in a place that maybe they hadn't thought about that, or they don't necessarily believe it, but they're open to change, well, maybe that'll spark something in them. And that's that influence, right? So leadership's built into everything. It's every conversation.
Yeah. Have you guys ever come across people that like that they're like, I want this, but then for whatever reason they're incredibly resistant to get to that place?
100%. Almost everyone has, I would say, across the board. And I think the more like sometimes inspired entrepreneurs can be, we want things quickly. Like we have really big visions and like magical things we want to happen today.
Right.
So I would think 100 across the board, there's something that you want to happen, but the differentiating point would be, at least, are they coachable? If there's someone coming in and they're just very rigid, or they're perhaps not open-minded, or they're just not open to the process, like we also are looking for that, because it's a partnership in a sense. Like there's a guidance, but there also needs to be a willingness to take action, because there has to be action if you're trying to get through to your goals. So I would say it's something that's very frequent, but as long as there's the willingness to step through those uncomfortable moments to get to that next point, then there's for sure a possibility.
We all have opinions. We all have ideas that we think are going to be better than maybe what somebody else has determined, even as a group or as a leader. I've always found, let's have a conversation. Let's sit down and let's have a conversation. So great leaders I've had took the time to sit down to build on our relationship. Like, okay, let's just talk. Like, what's going on? Like, just to have that conversation with somebody is often enough to at least figure out, okay, what's the gap? Where can we help you? What do you need? Because in the business environment, we all have these strategies and things we're going for, but maybe at home, they just lost a loved one and their life's a mess, and they have to show up at work and smile and do their job, and they're distracted. But nobody's taken the time to actually talk. Right. So, and I think as a leader, as being somebody that's intuitive, because we're all very intuitive, you can pick up on that if you're aware of it. And often, you'll say hi to somebody and how are you? And, we all have the way we answer that, right? Our programming. But being intuitive enough to know, like, hey, something's up. What's going on? Like that in itself that is leadership, because you're intuitive, but we all have it, so we can all do it. But just being open to have those conversations.
Absolutely.
So yeah, everyone has an opinion. The boat's always going to be rocked. But a great leader is going to be fully aware of that. And then you have layers of that within a company, different departments, right? And there's managers, and then there's leaders, and it's this moving dynamic that's constant.
Absolutely. It's always moving target.
Constant.
I'm trying to think like how I want to kind of wrap this up.
To wrap it up, I just appreciated in this conversation, Jackie, your perspective on leadership, because I had never seen it that way. So to me, and I think that's important for anyone listening, is you do get to choose who you look up to and who you see in that leadership role. And I just want to remind everyone, and this is a little bit of what we do with the Be Do Have method, is you get to choose who you're being. You get to choose how you show up for yourself. If something isn't working and if someone around you isn't serving you, like there's so much choice within that. You get to choose where you're growing into next. And everything does start with mindset. And as much as there's programs and opportunities, it's like start with a book, start with a podcast, start doing small incremental shifts on a daily basis to get outside of the way or the programming or the people perhaps that are around you, so that you can start to lead yourself to a way that you're just leading and loving the life that you have. However you feel and however you want to think differently to get to a different point, like it does start with like your internal voice.
Yeah.
So whatever that means for anyone listening, just leaning into that with a little bit more like maybe perhaps curiosity, and not that it has to look or be a certain way. It's truly whatever it is for each individual person.
Yeah, I think it's just the concept of what if it was possible? Getting
I like
clarity
that.
on what is it you're looking for, because I'll talk myself out of things, and most people do. They'll tell me why they can't do something versus how they could. So what if it was possible? And just putting that out there and just dropping it and then letting somebody think about it. What do you want? Jacklyn used to always say, I hate that question because it wasn't clarity, right? So helping you understand, okay, what if you could have and do and be anything you wanted to be? What would it be? And people will fight it and they'll say, well, I couldn't do it because, and they'll tell you all the reasons. And maybe there's certain things like, I'm not going to ever play in the NBA. I get it. But the reality is, until I open my mind to the possibility thinking and start to allow space for that, we're never going to grow to ultimately become, I believe, our best version of ourselves. So just having understanding and clarity, like what if?
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Join the Idea Citizen LinkedIn group and share this episode with a friend.